listening to.
Hello, Lauren.
Hello. How are you doing tonight, Doug?
Good. Good.
Good. All right. Good evening, everybody. This is Lauren Smith coming to you from Night Callers Bigfoot Radio here with Doug Hajicek. And he is the director of Monster Quest, Legend Meets Science, among many, many other fantastic works. So we are so grateful to have him here, and I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions, and we will get to those as soon as we can. But in the meantime, we're just going to, see where the interview takes us. So how are you doing tonight?
I am doing good. Other than being blown away all day from the wind. We had like 50-mile-an-hour winds today. It was crazy.
Yeah, we had a strong south wind here today, and what that means in the south is that if you have allergies, you are suffering right now, which is why I sound the way I sound. But you said that you were bike riding in this.
Yeah, I've been building e-bikes for research, because to me, I think it's going to be the ultimate future research tool. And so I build these really high-powered e-bikes that are like 2,000-watt e-bikes, and we're out testing a new one today.
Really? That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So they actually do allow those in wildlife management areas now.
They do. Just pretty much anywhere you can ride a bike.
That's crazy.
The difference is the bikes I build, you can get a burst of speed into 50 miles an hour.
Really?
So, yeah. Newsweek interviewed me once for, how do I think the mystery will end? And I said, it's going to be some electric powered vehicle. That was my prediction.
Okay.
Either a Tesla coming around a corner at, 100 miles an hour. Because you think about all the road sightings, all the road crossings. It seems to be the most common, sighting that I've taken is these road crossings. I was talking to a guy the other day, crossed right in front of his truck. If he would have been going faster, he would have hit it,
That's a good, so you think that they won't be able to hear it coming, basically?
No, I really don't, because, think about it. They're used to gas engines, ATVs, dirt bikes. And so now you can be going the speed of a dirt bike, but zero sound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you know what? I hope your prediction comes true. I really do.
One never knows. As you know, if you develop something new,
Yes.
you can't just test it once.
No.
You can't just be one guy testing it once. Well, that didn't work. Time to move on to something else.
Right.
So you've got to do something over and over and over. And that's hard for any one individual to do.
Absolutely.
You have to, these e-bikes, like I was talking to Michael Waldy today, and I was saying, Michael, you need a high-powered e-bike to go along with that high-tech truck that you have. You can load the bikes in the back.
Yeah.
And these things will go right through the forest.
Right.
Silently. And then what we do is we blast animal calls like coyote, wolf howls and rabbit, dying rabbit calls, just to kind of even distract what we're doing more.
Absolutely.
So maybe that came through. Yes. I always tell people I'm a wildlife researcher first. Then I became a film producer so I could study wildlife.
Okay.
That makes sense, because it would pay my bills. Yeah, it would give me money to pay my bills. Yeah. Like, okay, just to give you an example. I had this crazy idea one day. I want to build this underwater platform through cameras all the way around it. All this really cool lighting, and I want to put it at the bottom of Lake Superior. Okay. Just an idea one day, because I'm curious.
Right. What
goes on in a world where there's nobody around?
Right.
You couldn't think of a more spooky place than the bottom of Lake Superior.
Right.
Right. Even to me, it's more spooky than the ocean, because we know so little about it. So I started right away. I went to the hardware store and I started buying parts and looking for the body of this thing. And I made this thing called the Benthic Explorer. Put a hydrophone on it, a fish feeding system, 360 cameras, put naval technology lighting, hyperspectral, multispectral lighting, microscopic cams, put SAIS meters. I put a fish intelligence test on this thing, and then sucked a whole bunch of people in it, just people who were curious into my little project. And next thing you know, I got 50 people I'm working with.
Oh my gosh.
We lower it down, and divers and helicopters and big research ships. I built this in my garage. And I'm like, flash forward, and I'm on this ship, and we're going to lower it, and all these divers are in. I mean, I just thought, God, it's the curiosity. That's the key. It's what motivated me. But I wanted to instill curiosity in the people that get to watch it live on the internet, because then I put it, with I Talk Discovery Channel into putting it on their website.
That's awesome.
So anyhow, and so I got into doing Monster Quest out of just plain old everyday curiosity. What are these things? What are other creatures? Where do they come from? What goes on in the forest when nobody's around? Which I know you share that interest.
Absolutely.
It's really amazing, and how it changed anybody is, probably expected, but that was my goal. I mean, that really was my goal, to instill curiosity in other people.
Well, absolutely. And a byproduct of your curiosity is that you're educating other people. And that's pretty amazing. Changing lives, like I said.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a motivator, but to be real honest, I mean, if I really had to admit it, first it was always my own damn curiosity that drove me nuts, and it keeps me up at night. And I've still got a bunch of things I'm curious about. I'm not done. I wish I was younger and, had another life to go, but I don't. But there are still many, many things that make me, really, really super curious.
Well, that's good for your fans, because that means that there are more projects in the works that we get to watch.
Yeah,
so
there is. There's one, I've always had this idea of kind of a grand finale Bigfoot show. That would really be that would have more science in it than ever that's ever been applied, with every category of dream evidence people would want. And so I've spent the last, since Monster Quest sort of went off the air, it's been 11 years, and I've just worked on gathering new evidence for that 11 years. I want to unleash it.
That is awesome.
We've got some, and we'll talk about some of it tonight. Some of it's pretty amazing.
Oh, I look forward to that. I really do. I know you had told me that you have new stuff to talk about and new plans, and I'm really excited because I'm a huge fan of your work. So, I would love it. So you had mentioned before the show that you have had sightings yourself.
Yep.
So
I have.
You tell me about your first one?
Sure. Well, okay. So my first experience with Bigfoot, I don't even know if I've told this story. I was deer hunting with my uncle and my friend and my cousins. And we were up in Orr, Minnesota. It's probably 20 miles from the border of Canada. And it was the first time I'd hunted in this area. And my uncle put us each in a deer stand about a quarter mile apart. And before the sun came up, or just when the sun was barely, where the birds are starting to sing, I got a whiff of something that just literally almost knocked me off my deer stand. I mean, it was so bad. I remember covering my face to just my eyes peeked up. And then I'm thinking, oh, crap. Something is making this smell. And then I remembered reading probably a newspaper article about a skunk ape. And I thought, okay, I'm going to load one in the chamber. So I load one in the chamber, and the smell finally went away. But before it went away, there was chest beating that I heard. And I knew grouse, I know the sound grouse can do. Right. This was loud chest beating. And that kind of topped it off. And so I sat in that deer stand all day, completely bored with deer hunting. I just wanted to tell somebody what had happened to me. Right. So we were going to meet at noon. We all go to this meeting spot. Every single person in the camp had the identical story.
Really? So it visited everybody.
It went from deer stand to deer stand, stunk them out, did a chest beat, and then left.
That is interesting.
That was my first, certainly quasi Bigfoot experience. Right. We don't know.
Something out of the norm. I mean, it sounds like you listed off everything that it could have been but wasn't.
Well,
So
yeah, black bears don't beat their chest. You can go through all the animals, and then you add the smell, the chest beating, and whatever. And then the fact that it visited every single person
that's definitely
was really, in fact, it was like a week ago. I hadn't talked to my cousin in years. And he goes, remember that time we were deer hunting? That was really cool. So anyhow, flash forward, I was, I'd been doing a wildlife TV show. And I was on a trip up to a lake called Selwyn Lake. And I'd had this theory because of a big giant trout I had seen that was probably 6 foot long, a lake trout. And it was in the Windy River. I was reeling in about a 30-pound lake trout. And here come this 6 foot lake trout. I mean, right out of a storybook, slowly swimming, just slow motion like this behind it. And we had 2 other guys in the boat, and they all saw it. And I asked this guy that I was with, I was like, did you see that? And he said, oh, yeah, once in a while, he just like real casual, once in a while we see those, but you can't catch them because they're just too big. They'll never catch your bait or, they're just too big. So I had this theory that maybe it's a female lake trout that doesn't ever lay eggs, just to reabsorbs them and just stays there and just becomes a cannibal and just eats other lake trout. After all, that's what it was chasing. My big lake trout that was, we're talking huge like this, it was trying to catch. Okay. So I called a biologist. My curiosity got the best of me. I called a biologist, and he agreed to go up to the Arctic in search of these giant lake trout. And so I was up with this fisheries biologist, and he had agreed that there were trout that big. And so he wanted to get footage, and I had some ideas on how to get more footage of one of these giant lake trout. Well, we had to go to the bathroom, Lauren. And it was so rough out in this big giant lake that we decided to go to shore. And so we pulled up on this sandbar on this island. And we got out of the boat, and right away I noticed these huge footprints that came right out of the water. They were human-like footprints. I mean, we were dropped off by float plane up there. This is a very high Arctic type lake. Everybody looks at a map, Selwyn Lake in Northwest Territories. Right. Anyhow, make a long story short, we followed the footprints up, and then we came to a tree. There was a 7 foot tall stunted spruce tree because we're right on the tree line where trees no longer grow because it's too cold. So the first thing I noticed, there was a footprint right in front of the trunk, and then there was one right directly on the other side of the tree. Really? So either we're experiencing quantum physics here, or it just stepped over the tree. Oh my God. It can't be two places at once. No. And I looked at the tree and I went, oh my God, that's 7.5 foot tall tree, which isn't a big tree, but I couldn't, possibly even attempt to walk over it. Right. So this thing walked over that tree like a weed. Right. We kept following the prints. And remember, like I said, these were clear. And then they went into the moss, and we got on the other side of this tiny forest, and there were the footprints going off into the horizon. As far as my eye could see. Man. A straight line, just off. So we went back to the float plane operator and asked him if he'd go up. Yes. Told him the whole story, and he thought we were playing a joke on him. Of course. He got really angry. His face turned red. He threw his clipboard. And he was not about to be talked into going on that, on the thing and thinking everybody's in on this joke but him. And that wasn't the case. Because my idea was, since there's no trees, you could follow it. Yeah. Find it. Right to the end. There it would be. Right. That was my goal. And so I have a big regret not going back and trying to get his attention and, swearing on the life of my kids or whatever it would take. Right. This is not a joke. Right. And that was the turning point for me to go, monsters are real. Yes. Time to do something about it. Right. And so I just kind of dropped all my wildlife research at that point and got a hold of Matt Moneymaker. Matt's like, oh yeah, these things are everywhere. Yes. I mean, he meant wherever there's woods, water, and hills,
Right.
whether it's up in the Arctic or it's down here or California or New York. And I went, you're kidding me.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my first call. And I talked to Peter Byrne, and he kind of was, there were sightings up in the Arctic like that, at one time back in the 1800s but it was soon me and Matt became friends. And of course my goal was to do legend meets science.
Right.
That was my first call.
Which you've done, which was, it's still one of my favorites. I mean, whenever I refer people to this, I refer them to that as their kind of intro into the Bigfoot world, because
it's 20 years old now.
I know. I always tell them, I'm like, it's a little bit dated now. I said, but most of the science, I mean, I know, but all of the science really still stands. It is, but, the science still stands on it. And honestly, I feel like it's just a really good basis for entering the Bigfoot world, entering Bigfoot research. It's a good starting off point for sure. It's like intro to Bigfooting 101. That should be played,
Well, I got a kick out of it because I found all these colleges were using that show to teach forensics.
Really?
And I thought, well, that's kind of cool.
Oh, that is awesome. That is an awesome, I mean, man, there's no better compliment than that, really.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was there were colleges all over that were using it just to teach forensics, because it is kind of the documentary is not complicated. It just goes through all of these pieces of evidence, and I required the scientists give me a definite yes or no.
Right.
None of this wishy-washy.
Right, and they did. They had to say in there, they did say, they said, we have this and this, however, we cannot, be conclusive on that. So, I mean, you did great pulling those answers out of them. And I really love how it was all put together and the recreations and everything. That was my favorite part. Or just not my favorite part. I'm sorry. That's just one of my favorites. So, I watched the Monster Quest and I watched that. And like I said, that one's a good starting off point for anybody trying to get into this.
Yeah, it is. Probably it is. But I'm hoping the new one is going to take over This Leaves Off. And I'm hoping that it raises the bar much higher than that one ever did.
All right. Well, we can go ahead and go into that if you want, because I am waiting on pins and needles over here to hear about it.
Okay. The first thing I want to say that there's not one piece of evidence that I have in my hand that I personally collected. All of them is just me, working with other researchers, keeping the channels open, like with Michael. Let's talk about that first. For years, I've been seeing face prints, fingerprints. People have called and said, something left dusty fingerprints on my car door, on my window. And it really was only like 5-6 weeks ago. Yes. I went, that's what I always thought they were too, dusty fingerprints. Right. And all of a sudden, I go back and I go into my computer and I start looking at all these old photos of, fingerprints, handprints, including some face prints. Some other face prints, and it hit me. That's not dust that they're leaving behind. That's some substance. Their sebum, their skin oil. Yes. But it seems to be much thicker than ours. And lo and behold, Michael had heard me talking about this on Bobo and Cliff Show, their podcast, Bigfoot and Beyond. And he had just seen a face print that was white. Right. It's a very whitish look, and it does look like they had clay powder or plaster of Paris powder, but it's not. Right. It's actually an oil or a waxy oil. And so he called me up and it fit, he sent me photos. He was excited. And it fit the same exact MO, with the whiteness. And it was really amazing. And so Michael and Shelley Covington, Montana went and they collected the window and then collected the first DNA because there's going to be skin cells in this. Right. And they collected the substance because what I want to do in Legend Meets Science 2 is to figure out what chemical compounds make up the skin oil compared to ours. It may be skin oil they're rubbing into their hands on their fur or their hair. It may be something they're secreting. It could be food. That's something they're eating that's causing this. We don't know. But what we do know is in the research that I've found, like between skin oil between humans and gorillas, we have what they call an SQ molecule in our skin oil, 60 different wax compounds in our skin oil, which is really interesting. But primates don't have the SQ molecule. Really? Because they have hair to protect them from UV light. The SQ molecule apparently helps us deflect UV light, protect our skin. And they have none of it, which is really interesting. That is interesting. So that's just one of the things. I don't want to give away too much, but that's one of the things that we're going to be looking for is does it have this SQ molecule? Because this is a compound, I think, that we can get 10, 15 samples from coast to coast from all sorts of researchers. I bet you've seen handprints, Lauren.
Yes.
Yep, and they're white, aren't they?
I've seen handprints, dusty handprints.
Yes, dusty, yes.
Yes, I always thought it was maybe, dried skin cells or something like that.
Yeah, right.
But I guess,
it could be. It's possible that they're shedding tons of skin cells. Right. Which would also make DNA collection really cool and really easy.
Yes. If I touch a window with my fingerprint, you can't see that very well. But once they lifted it, this is what I wanted to tell everyone is once they lifted it onto that laminate, you could clearly see much more clearly than the picture of the face print, much more clearly than the face print on the glass. You could see the outline of the nostrils. You could see the face when they lifted it. And so, maybe I think they got pictures of that, and I'm not sure, if they were going to post them or anything like that. But
well, even the pores were present.
You could
pores, some of the hair. Very interesting.
It was fascinating once they lifted it. How much more you could see the detail, and like you said, you could do a recreation.
Well, it's kind of important, and this motivated Shelley to come up with a kit specifically to lift this vernix up, to collect the DNA, and I'm excited about this. Here's why. A scientist is going to get more excited about a chemical compound in DNA than a photo or a video, believe it or not.
Absolutely.
Because you can't duplicate thousands of molecules. Right. And so if a scientist gets interested in this, and they can collect samples from coast to coast, which we know they like to touch things. Yes. That we do know.
They do, yeah.
I mean, it's one thing you can almost guarantee if you go on an expedition, if you have activity, is that they will handle something in that camp. They will mess with your car. They seem to be real interested in cars and in glass and windows. So it's something that can offer scientists repeatability where video and film will not.
Yes.
So that's why I'm excited.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everybody says without a body, this will always be a mystery. This is a stepping stone to that. This could be a way to do this without a body. There will still be a mystery.
It is part of their body.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a way to do that.
I'm praying that there's some kind of unique wax.
Yes.
There's some type of a unique compound or acidity. Like, for instance, a lot of people don't realize, did you know our skin oil is 6 times more acidic than vinegar?
Really?
What if theirs is 12 times more acidic?
Right.
Or what if it's not acidic? Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't know. I'm just hoping there's great differences.
Right. All I can think about is, from a natural standpoint or adaptability standpoint, why they would need such thick skin oil, and it's because they're out in the elements. They're
right.
I know you said that primates don't have the SQ gene, but what if this comes back and they do? And because they do have the fur, and the fur doesn't reflect light, or it does reflect light, but the skin, if their skin is just right there in the sun, and if it's on their hands anywhere where they don't have fur or hair, to me it's just adaptability.
If people go back and start reading reports, one of the factors that I've heard over and over and over is it was really shiny. The fur was shiny.
I have heard that. A lot of sightings, especially full moon sightings, that's what caught their eye, was the full moon off the hair. Yes.
Yep, the hair is shiny. Well, that would indicate a high oil content. Mm-hmm. I mean, it could be for waterproofing. We just don't know. For instance, it could be artificial. I mean, it could be something they're collecting in the forest. Mm-hmm. I was talking to somebody who said maybe it's pine pitch. Pine pitch does turn white once it oxidizes. Right. But I don't believe it would. I couldn't imagine anything walking around with that sticky.
On your
face. Pine pitch on your hands? It's tough to get off.
Right. I just, my, and again, we don't know, but my gut feeling would be, protection from the sun, the elements, bugs.
Yep. Water. Yes. Wood tick repellent, mosquito repellent. Yes. I couldn't imagine. I mean, there's times here in Minnesota, we'll go, I don't know how bad it is in Oklahoma compared to here, but we'll go out and you're just covered with these seed ticks. Mm-hmm. Yes. They're just, they're thick.
Yes.
And it's not fun.
No, and then mosquitoes for sure. The one thing that bothered me that I don't think I asked anyone, and I am very weird like this, but the face print and the substance, I wanted to ask someone if they smelled it. Did you hear if anyone smelled it?
That shows how dumb I feel sometimes. You just said that, and I'm thinking, why didn't anybody smell it?
I just, I want to know if it's a musk that they produce, a pheromone that they produce, or if it, is pine pitch, or, and so that's me. I'm sniffing things, and one day it's going to be the death of me, I'm sure. But, that was, something when you said the pine pitch, and then also just a repellent or whatever. I just want to know if it had a strong smell, or I need to ask them if they smelled it. That's important. That's vital. Why don't we sniff more things and research?
I can tell you kind of a funny story. I had on my list, it's been on my list for 11 years, collect the smell. Mm-hmm. What is this smell? Right. It smells like rotten meat, burnt rubber, wet dog, manure. It's got kind of a lot of odors in it. Right. It's bad. It's always been a dream. And, I thought, well, you could use jars and no. So we did collect it. And we not only collected, we collected a lot of it. But it all happened by accident. We had a visitation situation where we were leaving peanut butter jars sealed. Mm-hmm. And it was taking them, opening the jars every day, scooping out peanut butter, and then leaving the jars. But for a while, it was taking the jars. The jars would just disappear. And we would find the caps would be laying right there. And then one day, the guy that I'm working with, who is one of the most hardworking people, I mean, he's really curious what's going on at his home up in the forest. Mm-hmm. And he was out and he found some peanut butter jars, and he always brings a bag with him in case he finds anything interesting. So he collects these peanut butter jars that he found that were completely empty. It looked like they had gone through a dishwasher. The labels were clean. The glue was gone. Mm-hmm. And he put them in a paper bag, and he's walking, or he's going to bring them home just to, throw them in the garbage. Mm-hmm. And he's walking through the forest, and he's thinking he's getting blasted with the stink. Uh-huh. And he's like, oh my God, this thing is following me. And then it hit him. It's on the jars. Oh my gosh. He calls me up. He's like, Doug, I think we just got the thing on your list.
Oh my gosh.
He wanted really bad. He said, it's so bad. He smelled him. He was about threw up. Oh. So I said, I gave him instructions how to get these things sealed, yes, and frozen, so we don't lose any of the smell. Oh. So I drove up there, and I opened this frozen bag to smell it, and about knocked me down. Oh my gosh. It's bad. Yeah, and it's not. It's once again, the jars are spotless.
Right.
So it's not It's not peanut butter that rotted.
Um,
I've found peanut butter jars that were like 50 years old out in the woods with peanut butter still in them. And it's fresh still. Peanut butter lasts forever. So it wasn't that.
Well, if you think about it, they are omnivores, more than likely. And they don't have toothbrushes or floss. And I am sure their breath is just absolutely rank. So if you think, because, they tell you to like lick your wrist and sniff it to test your breath or whatever. And maybe that's what we're smelling whenever they're out there. They're not putting off a smell. They're breathing at you.
Well, not only do I think that they put it off from a gland, but I think they can do it at will. I'm almost positive.
I believe that as well.
We did an experiment once, actually not very long ago, like three weeks ago. I took the guy that's got this place that's having these visitations, and I asked him, I said, dude, you're a singer. Let's go out in the woods, and you're going to sing. He said, oh, okay, whatever. Never tried that. Right. So we got out in the woods and he's singing. And the moment he quit singing, we got blasted. Everybody that we were with got blasted with this stink. It was so powerful. I can't even it was bad, Lauren. So we walked a quarter mile away and I said, do it again, Randy. And so he does a song, he quits, and we get blasted again.
Really?
Yeah. Don't know what so we moved again. Same thing happened. And it was weird because it was very directional. One person would smell it. They'd be like, oh my, and the next person wouldn't. And purposely we stood apart like 20 feet. And so I personally smelt it every single set that we did. Have no explanation.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I have had my mother, her first encounter, her first sighting. It had musked the area after she saw it, after she spotlighted it, and it had left. It had musked the area, but they could not find a source of the smell. They could not find a wet spot, anything that would. They sniffed all around. They couldn't find the source of the smell.
I've got one more smell story that happened to me, and I was on horseback with two other guys that were on horseback, and we were investigating. We were on a Bigfoot research mission by the St. Croix River, and all of a sudden we all smelled this terrible smell that we wrote there, and we had ridden through there before, and so we're all covering our faces, just doing the oh my God, and we get up a little farther down the trail, and here's a coyote laying in the trail, but it's alive. It's laying on its side, and its eyes are wide open. It's moving its eyes, but it's completely paralyzed.
Like stunned.
We dismount the horses. There's no smell at this point. It just went away. We dismount, and we start examining the coyote, and you can see two handprints on the fur of the coyote, and you could feel where its spine had been snapped. Okay. Right. And there's no blood on the coyote. It's obviously wasn't there earlier. It didn't walk there. Right. Did a Bigfoot kill the coyote as a warning to us or as intimidation? I can't come up with any other explanation. No, it wasn't there earlier. There's a coyote that's paralyzed, that's extremely alive. Right. This coyote was alert; it could not move.
That's insane. To me, that I would take it as a warning, but
yep. Yeah. The fact we could see the handprints.
Right.
It's pretty weird.
That's definitely one of the. Actually more intimidating and odd intimidation stories that I've heard or warning stories.
Yep. And I filmed everything. I filmed the reaction of the two cowboys I was with, filmed the coyote, the examination of the coyote. You can see the coyote just extremely alert. And then we had to put the coyote down.
Right. Absolutely. And you said the fur was dry, so nothing.
Oh, the fur was dry. Yeah, there wasn't a mark on it.
Interesting.
His back was just snapped. So that brings me to another thing. Are coyotes working with these creatures?
That's
on some level.
That's always been my theory, but I mean, that doesn't sound like a very nice working relationship.
No. If you could picture a coyote sitting next to this thing, almost like, we domesticate our dogs, right, and then grabbing it and doing what it did to it.
Right.
Is that possible? It's certainly possible. There was a time, in fact, one of the guys that we were with, I had gone grouse hunting with years ago. We're up in Canada. We were grouse hunting with a bow and arrow. And during the night, I hear this pack of wolves come charging through our camp, one after another, leaping through the camp, and you can hear them breathing. And right behind them, I feel the ground shaking, and I see I hear the boom, 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 boom. Right behind them. It was over that quick. Something was following them that weighed quite a bit. So
that's pretty scary, especially, wolves are kind of an apex predator, so that's terrifying.
So let's say they're not working with them. What if they're just following them? Right? They don't have to be working with them.
Right.
Ravens kind of have that relationship with wolves. They, the wolves look at the ravens and they get excited from the air because it's like aerial reconnaissance. Mm-hmm. But a raven would have a really hard time opening a wolf carcass.
Right.
Or opening a deer carcass.
Right.
And so wolves, the ravens tell the wolves where the deer is in the forest. Mm-hmm. Wolves attack it, kill it, open it up, and the ravens get to feed. And I've witnessed this.
Right.
I've witnessed ravens. And the wolves will just back off and let them eat.
Right. I've always wondered if coyotes were a cleanup crew, because you usually hear, coyotes. So you'll hear a howl that doesn't quite sound like a coyote, and then you'll hear the coyotes all, light up in the woods. And so I've always wondered if, Bigfoot had its fill, it lets the coyotes know, hey, food's here, and the coyotes go clean it up, so there's no evidence of Bigfoot teeth or whatever.
Correct. Or that could be their pay. Mm-hmm. Yes, for helping,
right,
locate game. Who knows? I mean, it's just, there's no way to know. But I do know that animals do work together that we don't know about. Mm-hmm. I always tell people the story of me working 2 years to put a camera in a beaver lodge, doing wildlife research. Mm-hmm. And after 2 years, I get this infrared camera in this lodge in this long tube. And all of a sudden I look and there's muskrats in there. And I'm like, well, why are there muskrats in a beaver lodge? And I went, that's weird. Or maybe there's no beavers that live here. Maybe it's just muskrats in the beaver lodge. All of a sudden, here come these giant beavers come into the lodge. And I'm like, this is going to be interesting. And you can see everything clear. And the muskrats start grooming the beavers. Really? Start grooming their fur. Yep.
I guess I would have never realized that they were in a symbiotic relationship. So did Siri?
As soon as I said grooming their fur, my Siri lit up here. What is that about?
She knows you're about to Google something.
Weird.
Back to the coyote on the trail, it could be a warning, or, maybe that coyote got out of line and it tried to go in on the kill before it was allowed to. And the Bigfoot, I just don't understand why it would put it on a trail instead of just, tossing it off to the side. And
right. And this was like a single track horse trail. If you can picture that, just a thin trail right along the St. Croix River, walking trail, game trail, whatever.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yep. That's definitely odd.
I think maybe one of your listeners will come up with a theory.
I don't know. Maybe
I really don't have any.
Maybe so. I did want to add the face print. So Shelly Covington, Montana, is in the chat, as is Michael Waldy and Logan Kraft. And Shelly said it did not have a smell. And also Logan chimed in that the print had been there for 6 days before they went to retrieve it, before they were called to go retrieve it. I'm sorry. And so, by the time they got there, they said there was no smell. So,
okay.
Maybe when it was fresh, it had a smell. I don't know.
Or it's like gorillas have an apocrine gland, just like we do under our armpits.
Right.
And maybe they have glands other places in their body that they can, literally just
turn off and on.
Squirt, just like bears. Yeah. Bears can do it. Deer can do it. skunks, fox, there's a number of animals that can at will, secrete this musk. Then Bigfoot's, it's not a musk. It's like, oh my goodness. It smells like rotten meat.
Yeah, it's a pheromone, but just, I know quite a few people that have gotten gross, like skunked out by it, basically. I mean, and left a stink that just would not die. It would not go away. And there was no source to the smell.
But every smell has a chemical compound again. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we'll be able to get a complete, so everybody can know what is in the stink.
Right. So
I'm excited.
Right. Absolutely.
I gotta pay for that out of my own pocket. I really want to know.
I think it'll be worth it. I think it'll definitely be worth it, especially when you come back and on Legend Meets Science 2 and you explain that process and how far you've come from Legend Meets Science 1, how far the technology has come. I was actually talking to Michael about that today, about how, so much, so Legend Meets Science, the first version, it is extremely dated, but I was telling Michael, I said, it's so frustrating because I feel like we haven't gotten anywhere. We haven't come that far from that. And, that's not true. DNA analysis has come, light years, and as well as audio, our database, the programs that we use. We have come far from it, but I just feel like we have all this great new technology and we still haven't solved the mystery. I'm just very impatient. I've been doing this for 20 years with my mother, and I am very impatient.
Yeah. I mean, there hasn't been really any new types of evidence.
Right.
That's where we're stagnant.
Right.
A lot of new videos. And there's a few that stand out that are, could very well be authentic. Certainly not as good as the Parturition footage. Nothing has emerged. I do know that, fingerprints have kind of ceased to go any further, the latent fingerprints and the friction ridges, but I want to take that another step further. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot more that can be done with some of the footprint casts,
right?
Including, electronic scanning microscopes to look for sweat pores, skin pores, and those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good idea. There's just a lot we could tell just from that alone.
Right. Yeah.
If Bigfoot has athlete's foot, we would be the first to know. We have some questions from the chat, so I just want to make sure I catch them. Okay, so Kite Man, Rocket Kite Man, Kite Squatch, he has been a fan of the show since the last time you were on. He said, is there any new video or audio technologies that you have access to now that you didn't have when you were making Monster Quest?
That's yes. Yes and no. Camera traps still continue to frustrate me.
Yes.
As everybody in the entire country.
Yes. Yeah.
But one thing that has possibly changed is my attitude. I think we all need to contact our game trail camera companies.
Yes.
And say, okay, we put the bait out. It filmed me putting it out. It filmed the deer and the chipmunks and the this and the that. Filmed me coming in to get the SD card.
Yes.
But who in the hell took the bait?
Yes. Yeah.
Just gone.
Yes. I don't know if you've talked to Michael about that, but he has, the different IR levels and all of that. And he uses a lot of really big words when he explains it because that's his, electronics are his thing. But, he called the electronics or the game cam company and he was like, he wanted to test the different levels, and he said, is this one, can they see it? And they said no, and he didn't want it to make noise, and so he ran the gambit of possible things: the smell, the sight, the sound, all of those things. And as far as I know, he still hasn't captured one on his game camera, so he has the top of the line, but it's they just know. And what I always tell him, especially because he'll go put his in the tree and he's like, all right, look on the app and see if you can see the picture. And I'm like, I can, but this is their territory. And if you put a game cam on my living room table, I'm going to know. I was like, this is their territory and there's something different there.
Right.
And that's a deterrent. I've seen a lot of them tripped with sticks. They'll throw a stick in front of it. A lot of them destroyed. They'll come back and it's destroyed. I mean, the whole thing's down. They just know to avoid it. And, people will be like, well, they're not that intelligent. I'm like, they're smart enough to stay away from humans. I think they're pretty intelligent.
One of the things that can be done is to make sure you have a SIM card type. Upgrade to the SIM card, like Michael does, right? He gets the picture on his cell phone. Offer to call your game trail camera company and say, can we send these photos to you?
Yeah.
In other words, if you get in a situation where something's taking bait on a regular basis, whether you're putting out apples or peanut butter, whatever, if you're in a situation like that, then you can call them and maybe say, why don't you guys look at this and you figure out what's going on here?
Right.
Bug them.
Well, I'll let him know to do that in all his spare time.
Everybody should do that.
Yes.
Eventually, they'll get off and they'll say, we know what's going on.
Maybe so.
Jeepers creepers. Why didn't we talk to them a long time ago?
That's a good valid point, and maybe they'll fix it and give us, just a little tweak, and then we can catch them.
Could you imagine if all of a sudden they tweak some internal mechanism in their, in their electronics, and then all of a sudden that week we get 100 game trail pictures from all over the country of Bigfoots?
It would be almost anticlimactic because it's just like that's all we had to do this entire time, really.
Yeah. How many times have you felt like that in your life?
Absolutely.
It's like, God, I should have done that a long time ago.
That's all I had to do, tweak this one thing, and it works perfectly. I was going to say back to the family that had the encounter and the face print. I was chatting with them at the conference, and they're very upset and they're very scared because of this activity, because of the aggressiveness of the activity. And, she was upset and talking about, maybe having to move and all of that. They had the encounter in February and then, then had the face print later on. And so what they had done in February after that encounter, they had gone and cleared their land around their house so that it couldn't creep up on them. And then now they've had the face print and everything. And so I said, and they already have lights. Because usually my first thing when someone's experiencing activity they don't want, I tell them put lights, motion sensor lights, spotlights, light it up around your house. That's my usual go-to. But then my second one, I said, if you don't want to move because it's a great property, it's a wonderful piece of land, try security cameras. I said, they avoid them like the plague. I said, best case, it leaves you alone. I said, worst case, you get closure because you see what's bothering you and you get a picture and you become a millionaire. So, I mean, just win-win there. But they avoid. And I have had people ask me, well, they don't know the cameras are there. And I said, yes, they do. I will have people with security cameras on the side of their house and something will move that security camera and turn it around and walk right by it.
Yep. Oh, I talk to people all the time that go, I just spent $2,000 on, security cameras. Once again, something came in the yard, smashed our whatever. Mm-hmm. There's no photos, no video. Camera will shut off just during that little period. I mean, it's a very frustrating mess. It really is. I mean, I just call it, it's the biggest argument for the lack of existence of these creatures.
Absolutely.
All of the game trail cameras, something's causing it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what to do. I know they're real, but do I know how to photograph them? Heck no.
No. Go back in time and hitch a ride with Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson and just, I mean, that's about the only way that at this point, maybe you should just try building a time machine and we'll just go that route and, we can use that going forward.
Well, mechanical traps still, I mean, they may work, but still you're dealing with trip lines, you're dealing with pressure pads. I mean, there's so many ways to do it. I don't know of any camera, the old days, they were not electric, the camera traps, they were mechanical. They were spring wind and something would move a line or a bar or a twig and then it would snap. So maybe we have to go back to spring wind cameras, It's a possibility. I don't know.
Maybe
I have no more answers than anybody else. None.
If anyone, I think you're
20 years of failure.
Oh, your e-bike. This is where it's at. Okay, this is where it's at.
Possibly. Yeah, because that's something you can drive around a corner, on a logging road. I mean, there's literally, where I live, you can get on logging roads and they just go for 20, 30, 40 miles.
Right.
They're not going to, and they're so rough, they're not going to expect some e-bike.
Right.
Come cruising around a corner.
Right.
And that's kind of the key. The encounter is going to happen at the bottom of a hill and around a corner. If you look at all of the the road crossings, almost all of them happen right after a curve.
Yes.
They're generally not on a straightaway. They're after a curve, or there's a downhill and then a curve. Right. And it'll be crossing the road right there.
Just make sure you have a dash cam or a FLIR or some kind of recording device on your e-bike at all times, so that we can all see it. Again, we may not be able to prove it, but at least we'll have,
right.
We'll have that.
Yes. I mean, that's literally what I thought.
Yeah.
And he comes back and he's like, oh my God, this thing was standing. When I first Bigfoot said he was standing right in the middle of the trail, but it was doing this airplane thing over and over and over. So I don't know.
That's interesting. I mean, I just wonder if it was drying off or airing out maybe, or.
Oh no. Yeah, because, of course, where I saw it was right at the edge of a road, but there was a stream right where it was standing that empties into Mille Lacs Lake. And where the stream had gone through was a huge state forest. So geographically, once again, it made sense. So I think what it did is came out of the mosquito-ridden forest, which was humid and hot, came and took a bath in the lake or the stream,
right,
and then was drying off before it went back into the forest.
Interesting.
That's it.
That's just weird.
Nothing magical. It just happened. Yes, I had a witness with me, which is great.
That's amazing.
You feel like every time you see one, you're like, am I crazy?
Right. Right. Oh, definitely. Those are fantastic encounters though. Like I told you, my perfect first sighting would be, driving and you turn and the headlights sweep and there it is. And then you just go along about your business. I would be completely happy with that. But I guess I'll accept,
right. Well, people ask me, why didn't you turn around? Well, one, I had cars behind me. I mean, remember, it's a very small little windy road that goes around this lake. On the right side was forest, the left was lake. There's no shoulder to speak of. I'm not going to risk my life to go turn around because I guarantee it would have been gone anyhow.
Right.
And so you just kind of go enjoy the moment. Got to see it. Got to see it moving. I got to see its fingers. Got to see how big it was. And the moment's gone, and that's it. It's in my head. And it's the end of it.
That's
no footage. And if I would have got footage, what would it prove?
Right.
That the Monster Quest guy faked some footage.
That's how it goes. I had someone tell me recently they had gotten into the field, a couple years ago, and at that time someone was like, "Oh, I have prints, I have, footage, whatever." And this person, they just couldn't believe that they had, all this great evidence. They were like, "Why don't you share that?" And then after being in the Bigfoot community for 2 years, they quickly realized why you don't share stuff like that. And I think it holds us all back. But okay, so I wanted to ask about back to Monster Quest, Snell Grove Lake. So there was an incident. If you could tell me about the incident and then tell me maybe what wasn't in the show.
Oh my goodness. It's a long story that you can't really make too short.
Oh, well, that's okay.
So I was doing a wildlife show and I had gone to this cabin to just film this really cool cabin that had solar power, had running hot water, had a gas stove, and had bunks, but it was in the middle of nowhere and had little electrical lights. So it was luxury in the wilderness. And so I went up to film it. And the first time I went up there, the gentleman I was with, the host of the show, his gallbladder burst.
Oh my God.
And got flown out of there, was an emergency. But I told the lodge, 2 days later, he picked us up. We didn't even know anyone was coming back, but I said, I want to come back here. This is amazing. And that was probably, I'm trying to think what year, late 80s, 89. And then, so I did. I went back up and I went back up and went back. I just kept going up there. Nothing ever happened until we brought our daughters up. 3 of us guys decided you only have 6 people at a time. So instead of bringing our sons, we thought we'll bring our daughters up. And my daughter was making monkey sounds. Yeah, she said it helped her catch walleyes.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where she got that. So
that's plausible. Whatever works.
Yeah. So we were pulling out of the stream, and she was doing these monkey sounds. And all of a sudden, there was a big wood knock right next to the boat. And we were on a creek that was probably, 6 feet wide, poling, it's all rocky. And it was like a warning to warn somebody or something that we were coming out into the main lake again.
Right.
So I took note of that because I was, certainly into Bigfoot, but I'd never done it up there, ever.
Right.
That was where I went to relax and want any Bigfoot activity. And it's just such a vast wilderness, Lauren. So to make a long story short, I decided to let's do some wood knocking that night. We did. We had an answer back right near the campfire, like within 20, 30 feet of the campfire. So we did a little rock exchange that lasted for hours. And then we went into the cabin because everybody wanted to go to bed. It's probably like 3 a.m. I stayed up and I'm reading a Field and Stream magazine because I'm just kind of wound up from the activity that we had. And I'm also kicking myself, God, why didn't I ever do Bigfoot research up here before? I travel coast to coast looking for Bigfoots, and here's one in the middle of nowhere. And so I go to bed, but I was getting ready for bed, which included me going up to the sink to brush my teeth. I flicked a little light on. There was a fluorescent light above my head. I'm this far from a window. Right. Faces the forest on the other side of the lake. And I flip it on and all hell broke loose.
Really?
I mean, it just screaming. Stuff started getting thrown at the cabin. It was as if I scared the living daylights out of numerous creatures.
Right.
Yeah, that were looking in the window. Oh, man. And not only were they screaming, they were throwing things. I heard running on the roof.
Oh my gosh.
I look up and the skylight's open. And so there was a big pole you hooked into the skylight and crank it shut. That was the first thing on my mind because I'm picturing dropping in.
Right.
I don't know what's doing this. I'm presuming, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
For all I know, there's little aliens running around up on the roof. I want to get it closed.
Right.
So I get it closed. And while I'm closing it, I can feel the cabin moving back and forth.
Oh my gosh.
And looking down, I can see the floorboards flexing on the floorboard. And I mean, the cabin is being rocked back and forth. It's up on blocks. So if 2 of these things were on both ends, apparently they're really strong. And at that point, I ran into the room of one of the guys and I started beating on him, Vladimir, on his back. Could not get him to wake up, couldn't get him to move. I don't know if it was because I kept him up so late in the fresh air, all the fresh air. Right. And then I ran into Joe's room and started pounding on him. Same kind of reaction. Just, I remember Joe kind of rolled over, but that was it. And then everything just stopped just as quick as it started. And so that's kind of how it started, and the rest. And then it was, he had the floatplane pilot had come to pick us up, and then it wasn't the next, I think it was the day after the next, but he came to pick us up and I told him what happened to us. And he said, well, that's funny, because the cabin got destroyed, like the year before. And I said, well, what do you mean? I said, there's no damage I can see in the cabin. I didn't see anything. And he said, well, we thought a bear had gotten in there because it tore the cabinets off. It, flipped everything open, broke everything inside the cabin, bent the pipes in the sink even. went into the shed, flipped a big, huge, we're talking a monster gas tank upside down, weigh about 1,200 pounds. Damaged it bad, and he told me he had insurance video that he had taken. I'm like, I need to see that. So I told him, there's not one tooth mark. There's no claw marks. It certainly wasn't a bear that broke into your cabin. I said, Chuck, I've been going up here, almost 30 years, and I don't see any scratches, no claw marks. I mean, everything was just, he had put everything back. I mean, it tore shelves off the wall that were, screwed. You got to have hands to do that.
Yes, yeah.
The windows weren't broken, which I found fascinating. If it was within kids, the first thing kids do is chuck rocks through the windows. Yeah, the windows weren't even broken. There was debris on the ground that was deep. You can see it in the video. And so that that was where I got the idea once again, because he said, we put a nail board out and something stepped on this nail board. It was a screw board. And I looked at him and I said, there's no bears going to step on a screw board. It's just a deterrent so they don't step on it to come, to break into your cabin. It's kind of common up there, but a bear would never, I can assure everybody, a bear would never step on a screw board. They're very gingerly. They're going to step and feel, and every foot, something came around the corner, I think, and did step on it because there was flesh and blood and fat tissue on the board. So I just said, Chuck, let's put it in the shed. I'm going to come back up. And that was the Monster Quest episode.
Oh my gosh, it's insane.
Well, that's what led up to it.
Right. Well, yeah, because in the Monster Quest episode, you did cover a lot of that. I think you told the story differently in the episode, which I understand why. But, you told it from the perspective of differently. It wasn't, you. But in the insurance video, he had mentioned that the door was closed to the bathroom.
Yes.
And so he thought everything was good. And he opened it up and the sink had been removed and thrown down and all that. And then the door was shut again.
Yes.
And to me, I'm not a bear expert, but I would just say that a bear would not shut the door behind it kindly.
Yep, very odd.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, like I said, it was very Siege of Hanobi-ish almost, and I just can't believe that they would rent that out, knowing that people, I guess maybe.
It had never happened to anybody, we were the first people to probably ever wood knock up there. And to me, the wood knocks kind of let you know it was effective.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
The fact that we heard a wood knock, they did it first.
Yeah.
Wasn't us. I would have never done it if I wouldn't have heard that wood knock. And I'm like, it's wood knock tonight.
Oh my gosh. I think it's awesome that you were already aware. I'm sorry that happened because it was terrifying, but I think it's great that you were already aware and you were able to kind of know what was going on maybe.
Yeah.
Definitely the skylight part. That would have...
Yeah.
I would have been terrified. I would have been terrified altogether.
Well, then when we went back up, I brought my son. Meldrum went. What else went on that? Kurt Nelson, the DNA guy. And we wanted to get that nail board and, get samples collected. If we would have had Shelley's kits, her DNA kits, would have been perfect. We didn't. I wouldn't even have had to come up maybe. Could have had them tested first. But we had no way to collect DNA, and so we just put it in the shed. And then Meldrum and Kurt did. You can see them scraping chunks of fat tissue, and I'm praying that I have a call in to Jeff right now. I'm hoping somebody still has some of that fat tissue stored.
Yeah, hopefully.
And I also started calling to Kurt. I have not talked to either one of them
in years.
They're busy people apparently.
Do they not know how vital this is?
I don't know. I just want to get I want to get it to a DNA lab that can, see to get far more genomic information,
Right. Absolutely.
So anyhow, when I brought my son up, he was really skeptical. He was like, yeah, right. It got so bad even when he was there that he started going into literally shock. I was actually concerned for him.
Right.
He had turned white. He was shaking uncontrollably. This was after the cabin had been attacked while we were in there with, it threw a huge piece of cordwood but it threw it with such force that the whole cabin just reverberated, just boom,
Yeah.
When that happens in the middle of the night when you're not expecting it, and he was pretty young. I think he was, 14.
Right.
He literally got out of his bed, crawled under where there was spider webs, fixed, went right into those spider webs, and laid under there and shook, trying to get away, thinking he was about to have his, arms ripped off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's terrifying. And back to the original incident, that's what I was going to say was, do you think, because, you had mentioned infrasound in one of the Monster Quest episodes, and I was so thankful that you did because, I do believe in it and I have been hit with it. Do you think that they had been infrasounded, or do you think they were just really exhausted?
It's possible. I don't know what effects that would have on somebody other than giving them anxiety.
I know. Well, I've had it hit me, and I've been full of anxiety. I mean, because I'll be honest, I do have anxiety attacks, and I do know what that feels like, a pressure on your chest, and can't catch your breath and everything like that. And so I've been hit with it when it felt like anxiety, but I have also been hit with it to where one minute I was terrified and I was like, Mama, can we go? Mom, can we go? Mom, can we leave? And I mean, I was just adamant. I was scared. Let's go. And then in the next minute, it's like I melted into my seat. I was just relaxed and lethargic. And she said, do you still want to leave? And I was like, no, it's okay. Let's just stay here. And I mean, and I've had other people that have been hit that way too, to where they just get very sleepy. Just very lethargic.
Do you must know David Ellis?
I know of him, yes.
Okay. My son recorded some really interesting, they had a lot of Bigfoot activity. They were in their tent. They had an everybody take note of this, because they had an H1 Zoom recorder with what they call a dead cat microphone cover on it, which is a fur
fuzzy cover
on it, just a windsock, basically, artificial fur. They had that away from the tent. They had wires running in with a splitter so they could both have headphones on, lay in the tent and hear the activity. They had a ton of activity, a lot of rock throwing, boulders being thrown near the tent that were landing. And this was in the Boundary Waters canoe area, really remote area. Anyhow, they recorded this on 2 nights. The second night was even worse. I mean, actually felt like their life was in danger. But what's interesting, when I got back and I wanted to hear the tapes, I'm hearing what sounded to me like heart beating. So I'm listening to the negative spaces in the tape, which I think I would love to put a call out for more people to listen to their negative spaces. In other words, I'm not saying if a Bigfoot is far away, but if one is close, and it's close to your recorder, there's where you want to put headphones on, get it really quiet, and try to see if you're hearing anything that sounds like heartbeat.
Right.
So you just made a point that I'd never heard before. Tiredness. So David's theory, because so let me backtrack. So I call Blaine. I go, what's with this heartbeat sound? He goes, yeah, I kind of heard that too. And I thought, well, it was maybe just my recorder making that sound. I said, no. I said, my heart is racing a little bit right now. I know supposedly I have a really good heart. It doesn't vary at all. Even when I get kind of excited, if I'm out bike riding, it just kind of stays. Right. And I noticed my heart rate going up. And I called him and I said, we need to have like Bill Munns look at this. We need to have Adam Colt look at it. And there were some other engineers. I hadn't met David yet. And somebody suggested we get these to David. The bottom line is there's these spectrographs that show a beat at 102 beats a minute, which would be like an elevated heart rate. He said this may be what they're doing, is they're projecting a sound that syncs your heart to the sound.
Yeah.
Well, if they could raise it, why couldn't they lower it?
Absolutely.
And make you relaxed.
I mean, yeah, definitely put their prey, fight or flight. They could just put their prey, relax their prey, walk up, pick up a deer and
Right.
walk off with it.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, I know that other animals do that. Other animals have that ability. It's a scientific fact, which is what I like to tell people when they say that infrasound is woo. I said, no, infrasound is a legitimate thing that happens in nature.
Well, you can see it on a spectrogram. And what's really weird about it is he was saying it goes from almost zero up into the spectrum where you can hear it. So it gets into the infrasound range, but it also gets out of the infrasound range. And I would imagine you'd have to be really close to the creature to hear it in the audio part of it. But the fact that whatever it was right in their camp and was so close that they recorded this.
Yes.
And obviously a lot more work has to go on that because, we've tested the recorder. It's not that. David agrees it's not mechanical because it varies a little bit. Like right before it'll throw a stone, all of a sudden the heartbeat thing will change a little bit. So we don't know what it is, but yeah, this could be the elusive infrasound.
Right. I mean,
But once again, it's not something anybody's going to notice. So they need to start examining their old audio tapes.
exactly.
Once again, if tons of us have it,
Yes.
because they just ignored it, that, oh, that's my heart.
Right.
Or it's just somebody's playing drums in the
It's
background.
the wind. It's it's
Whatever.
the recorder. I'm sure everybody thought it was a recorder, but would you say it was like a heartbeat, but like a wub 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 wub, that kind of
No,
noise?
more of a, like if you heard of a very distant, like a native drum,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
In the Boundary Waters, I mean, it's even a no-fly zone as far as I know. There's no mechanical sounds, there's nothing there that would do such a thing.
I would really love to have people go look at that. Just go review their audio and, like you said, listen to the negative spaces because everyone listens to the high points. They're listening for vocals. But,
Well, listen to the negative spaces near activity.
right.
Right within it.
Right.
That 5 minutes before the activity,
Right.
and see if they're hearing this boom, boom, kind of this pounding.
Yeah.
And you have to have headphones. You cannot hear it with the speaker.
That's interesting. I think definitely, I hope more people do that, and I hope they report back, and I will let you know.
Right.
That's definitely interesting. Yeah, the infrasound, it's real to me. I have a friend who he could physically feel it, and he said it felt like standing in front of a bass, like a speaker, and feeling the bass off of it. And he could
Okay, describe that to me. I mean, was it a pounding sound?
it wasn't a sound; it was just
No,
a
I mean,
feeling.
A thump. Was it a thumping, like a heartbeat thumping?
Yes, he said it was like waves, like standing in front of a big speaker and at a concert, and you're feeling the bass hitting your chest, and he could feel it.
At what rate? Did you remember what rate it was, Lauren?
I think he just said it was a steady, just a steady pump, 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 pump on him. It was. He said beating. That's the word he used. He said it was beating against his chest. And I was standing right next to him. And at that time, I did not know that he could feel it too. And I had told him I feel something. I didn't say what because normally people don't want to hear that you can feel infrasound. And I was feeling the pressure, the anxiety on my chest, like something was sitting on my sternum. He was feeling it. And then he said, I'm going to turn around and go sit by that tree and see if we still feel it. And I said, okay. He turns around and stops. And he says, I feel it on my back. It's pulsing on my back now.
He did say the word pulsing.
Yes, he did.
We need to talk to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually,
Yeah,
I can get you in touch with him. He's a very good friend of ours.
Talk to him.
Yeah.
David needs to talk to him.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
David Ellis.
Yeah, I had never had anyone tell me. I have had people tell me that they, someone was feeling it and someone stepped in front of that person and then they couldn't feel it anymore. So that's how I've decided that it's directional. They can put it on one person or point it at one person. But I had never had anyone tell me they could physically feel the beating. I've had people tell me they've been growled at, roared at, whatever, and they could feel the reverberation. I've been growled at. I could feel my chest vibrate from it.
Wow.
But during infrasound, I've never felt a physical...
It's the first time I've heard that.
Me as for
Because
him.
people say, well, I might have been blasted by infrasound. I was confused.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember when anybody dragged it out of them that it was pulsating. I'd never heard the word pulsating.
Yeah,
and I've talked to tons of witnesses. There was one gentleman I talked to here who I've known for years, woodsman, tracker, big outdoorsman. At one point, he went to go pick up his trail cameras, and somebody found him spinning in circles. He didn't even know his own name. He didn't know where he was. He was just spinning in circles. He was literally rescued out of there. He got away from the area. Boom, he was back. He was like, what happened? Didn't even hardly really remember what happened.
Just very disoriented. That's interesting.
Yep.
I mean, and like your friends, I just really think that, what if they were lulling them to sleep and then you go through there and flick on the light and,
Yeah. No, that's interesting. They definitely have a temper.
Yes. Yeah.
That I got to witness. I mean, it's like that.
Right. Especially when they're startled. I would imagine it's all about control. If they lose control, it's
right.
Not good for their situation, especially being in hiding.
Yep. Well, I think I just, from the darkness, because it was just a candle. I was reading light by, and I go over and I standing under this fluorescent light. Yeah. And, I've got gray hair, white hair, and it just probably scared the living daylights out of them.
They didn't think you, well, I don't know. I mean, they just.
What it sounded like a juvenile had jumped on the roof, is what it sounded like to me. When I'm thinking about how do we explain the running.
Right.
It wasn't a big full-grown creature. It wasn't a huge creature, but you could hear it. And it sounded like the other ones were yelling and screaming, like communicating back and forth. So just one of the, spaghetti theory.
Right.
Did their young one leap up on the roof and they were just trying to get it down? They weren't backing the cabin. They were panicked. You follow me?
Yeah, or maybe
possible.
It could have been just juveniles just messing with you guys, and
could have been that. Yep.
That juveniles, maybe Mama and Daddy showed up and they were like, "Get down, get down."
Yeah, exactly. It sounded like chimps, like chimps.
That's what I was going to ask: is what did the vocalization sound like?
But screaming much louder and much more angry, and it was insane.
Was it high pitched or was it like a guttural?
I would say it just sounded like if you took a chimp and made a chimp weigh 500 pounds. You just kind of blew it up a little lower pitch.
Right.
But still, it hit the high notes. Because we heard it the next day too, when we were out. We have to burn the perishables in the fire pit, and so we were out burning the perishables. And me and Joe hear this chimp-like fighting across the bay. And I said, that's so similar to what I heard last night. And you just hear them fighting. And we looked and we saw two dark shadows. You could hardly differentiate them from shadows. But two of them walked from the left to the right on the other side of that bay. But you could hear this chimp-like fighting going on as if, they were fighting.
Yeah.
Best way to describe it.
I think it was definitely interesting that your daughter was making those noises. I just wonder if she drew the attention,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't know.
Very interesting.
That was the first, because you got to remember, I'd gone up there many years, and I've even slept outside on the, on the dock, pull the futon out on the dock because it's too hot in the cabin.
Right.
Not ever worried about, because it's such a vast wilderness, you never see wildlife.
Right.
Think, that's where all the wildlife is. Oh, you're going to see moose and caribou, and they're all there. The bears, I've seen kind of like one of everything over the 30 years, but it's taken 30 years.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I'll see one seagull. That's it. The only one. Not even a jay, not a crow, not a raven, nothing.
That's
because it's so remote. Right. It's a huge wilderness.
Yeah.
There'd be the resident seagull. That's it. I don't see a chipmunk. No bugs except, black flies. Right. I mean, just see wildlife up there.
There's so much room to spread out.
Yep. But probably say, well, one time I saw a pine marten. One time I saw a moose. Yeah. One time I saw one black bear. In 20 years, it's not much.
No, it's really not, especially with how often you were out there and, That's really interesting. I did have one more question from the chat, which I'm going to have to go find. Hold on. Jordan Warner. So Jordan Warner is a director as well. He does amazing films. And so from that aspect, that's he's a huge fan of yours. And he wanted to know, he said, "Hey, Doug, good to hear from you." He said, "What is your opinion on current crypto programming / documentaries after Monster Quest? Has it helped or overly saturated the integrity of the subject?"
I think a little of both. To me, they all do one thing that's really good. You could never put it down. They all have witnesses. Mm-hmm. The eyewitnesses, as much as it's anecdotal, to me, half the population listens to 5 people in a row tell their story, mm-hmm. and they're convinced. Yeah. I take a lot of stock with eyewitness reports. I personally do. So I'd say definitely more good. Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, I know that, it's done a lot of good for the topic in total. You used to not be able to talk about this around the water cooler without being laughed out of the office. And now I have more and more people coming up and talking to me about it, feeling comfortable to tell me they saw something or heard whatever. Their cousin's mother saw a Bigfoot, So it definitely has gotten the topic out there, Yep.
It's good. I think anytime you get people talking, I think it's a good thing. It was a good question, Jordan. Yes. And hello, Jordan.
We did have another question. Trip Smith wants to know, do you sell your e-bikes? Is there a link? And not yet.
No, I've built a lot of them, and I have sold some after I'm done with that model now. Yeah. I want to build something better, faster, something with more juice. But I'm happy to provide, some links for people can build. They can build their own, and you're better off building your own because you can make the batteries last longer, twice. Mm-hmm. You can get more wattage on the motor, and the kits are not that hard to put on. They're really not. But the key is to know what to do.
Right.
I could provide you links.
Okay, yes, and then I'll post them.
And then you can just, anybody requests, you can forward them the links.
Okay, all right, that sounds
It's really something anybody with just minimal mechanical skills can do if they have tools.
Oh gosh.
You can build the ultimate e-bike for $1,500.
Okay, that's not too bad. I can see why you and Michael are such close associates. Y'all both are.
Yeah, we got to get Michael into one.
Please, that is my life goal now, is to see Michael on a bike.
Yeah. It's not a bike. It's not a bike.
An e-bike. I'm sorry. Yes, you are correct. With big tires. Yes.
Huge tire. Yep. Electric all-terrain vehicle.
Yes.
I mean, they are amazing. I guarantee if you rode one, Lauren, that'd be the end of it.
Oh, probably so.
You'd have to have one.
I would never, that would definitely beat, hiking into an area when I could just put my bag on.
Here's why they're so amazing. I'll talk more on it because you can lift it over a log. You can't do that with a dirt bike.
You cannot.
You can't do that with an ATV. You got to go around. With my bikes, just lift them up, set them on the other side of the log. I'm on my way again.
Yes.
If you have something you need to do, you can put these things under your arm. Mm-hmm. You can carry them up a mountain.
Yeah.
I watched my son literally carry one up a mountain the other day. We went on a long ride, and he grabbed the thing and just carried it on up.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I mean, you could get back into some really good places with it for sure. Yeah.
So you can get into places other vehicles cannot get.
Right.
Yep.
Like wildlife management areas, you guys, where it says no vehicles beyond this point. That does not count. Bikes do not count.
Yeah, that doesn't count. I hope they don't reverse that law, but right now, apparently anywhere in either national parks, state parks, right. You can ride a bike, you can bring an e-bike.
That's pretty awesome. I think you're really onto something, and I cannot wait to see what you do with it.
Yeah.
On that note, so you have your e-bikes, you have Legend Meets Science Part 2. Do you have any other upcoming projects?
I do, but they're non-Bigfoot related, but they're related on genomics.
Right.
I'm really interested in genomics.
Okay.
all of the advances, and the advances are actually mind-blowing. Mm-hmm. So part of me is applying some of that knowledge and my connections to the DNA of Bigfoot. And part of it's just, going ahead and working on another television project because I'm just interested.
Right. Oh, the curiosity.
All the genomic stuff that could be done now. It's pretty amazing.
That's pretty amazing.
Really, for instance, they're solving cold cases, 50-year-old cold cases from one skin cell.
Right.
It's been stored, as long as it's dry, it's been stored in a dark area, and it's been dry all these years.
Right.
We're good to go.
That's amazing.
And years ago, they would have had to pretty much pass on that.
Yeah.
I mean, to hear about some of the cold cases that are getting solved, which the new genomic technology, it's amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
And not only are they solving the crime, they're going, oh, this is the address of this person because we found their cousins.
Yes.
We did a 23andMe or whatever, a family history test.
Yes.
And then they go to them and then they locate the, is there somebody in your family that might be a little bit different?
Yes.
They may have killed,
Yeah.
And they're making arrests. It's really amazing.
They are. It is amazing. I would hope that not too many samples have been thrown out or destroyed because they weren't viable back then, but are viable now.
And even if people have like DNA, they've collected hairs. Yeah. It's just so important they store them in a dry, dark area. The dryness is more important than anything, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I know that whatever you have next up for us will be just as amazing as everything you've done in the past. And we can't wait to see what you bring us with Legend Meets Science Part 2 specifically. I know we are all, we're all really excited. I know it's going to be good. It's going to be the next step in the intro to Bigfoot world curriculum that I think everybody should have to watch.
I'm hoping. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but I am hoping this will be amazing.
I think it'll be great. It'll be great. Well,
thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on. You were a great guest. Thank you for giving us so much good information, and your stories are amazing. You've been an amazing guest, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, anytime you want me back on, I'm here. Let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. Probably, I think we are going to go back and interview that family. And so after that point, we might have to have a round table on to talk about that.
Cool.
Yeah. So thank you again so much. And you keep working on all your projects, and good luck with all of that.
All right. Thanks, Lauren.
Okay. Thank you. Good night. Okay, everyone. Thank you guys for listening to this show. I appreciate all of your support and everything. I just wanted to remind everyone real quick, if you'll go hit that subscribe button, hit a like, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so that you can get live updates on Nightcallers Bigfoot Radio. You can also find us on Facebook. We have our Facebook page. We have our Facebook group. Now that group is an extension of this live chat to where you can go interact with all the other listeners. You can post pictures. You can post videos, network. You can do all that. You can see the events that we have coming up. You can also post your own shows in there and your own projects. We support everybody and try to boost them up in there. Also, I am on Instagram under Nightcallers Bigfoot Radio. You can find me on there. And that is where I post my pictures from my adventures and events, also updates on the show. So I appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. And please don't forget to go like, subscribe, and please share the show with anyone that you think would find it interesting. Again, a huge thank you to Doug for being such an amazing guest. I probably could have kept talking for another couple hours. So I wanted to let you know that our next guest is Mr. Ken Gerhard from Texas. And so he is an author, a speaker, and a cryptozoologist. And I think I have had him on the show before, but it was a long time ago. So he has done a lot of great things since then. And I cannot wait to talk to him. That will be November 22nd, 2020 at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the usual time. So everybody, just thank you again for listening and supporting the show. And everybody have a great week. Be safe. Be kind. All right. Good night, everybody.
don't know.